It seems that every corner of the global banking industry is approaching a critical juncture. The rise of non-bank competitors and new technologies, plus digitisation and the importance of data, are forcing banks to reinvent themselves and their services to stay relevant to clients. Transaction banking, widely regarded as strong and stable but relatively slow moving, is also undergoing great change. It essentially provides the plumbing of the global economy. It's responsible for the infinite number of payments we make every day. It finances international trade, and it helps corporate treasurers manage their hugely complex cash flows. Yet many of the incumbents in this space are weighed down by legacy infrastructure at a time when the tech giants are wading in. The arrival of open banking, which will allow third-party access to client data, promises to disrupt their value chains even further. This new ecosystem creates many challenges for banks, but also opportunities for those willing to embrace the new transaction services environment. In this Viewpoint series, we visit ING headquarters in Amsterdam to speak with their transaction services leaders about how banks are confronting this brave new world and what they must do to succeed. I start by asking Mark Buitenhek, Global Head of Transaction Services, how he sees the transaction banking landscape changing.
There are a number of headlines going on right now, but if you see the large changes in the big shifts in transaction banking, by the way, we're talking about cash and trade within transaction banking. Speed has increased enormously, complexity, innovation, digitization, innovation is everywhere, and with that also the cost that we need to manage. So those are I think the main headlines if you talk about the changes in transaction banking.
And what are the developments or factors that are driving those changes?
Yeah, if you talk about the key drivers that lead to these changes, first and foremost, customer behavior. And much, by the way, based on what customers experience in the consumer world, is now being transported to the business world as well. Their expectations have dramatically changed from that respect. Regulation is, of course, a factor of influence. Regulation on the balance sheet, regulation on new entrants, Payment Service Directive, open banking, technology. Technology has become easier, cheaper, much more available, and some have a dramatic impact on the industry, or could at least have that, like blockchain, for instance. And the last part, I think, that we're seeing today more and more that has a serious impact are the geopolitical uncertainties in the world that drive certain regulation, that create uncertainty for our customers, and which in that turn lead again to new type of solutions that are being wanted.
And for the banks that are the traditional players in this area, does this new operating environment create any opportunities?
Yes, absolutely. You can talk about the threats, which of course are absolutely clear that there are threats for banks, but the opportunities. In an uncertain world, if you are able to help your customers to navigate through that uncertain world, yeah, that leads to opportunities. And the most important part is to keep an eye on what your customers really want and what they expect from you. But you have to be ready as a bank, as an organization, to do that. So enabling your organization to react swiftly to these changes. For instance, are now in the move towards a more agile organization where we work with much smaller teams, and that gives us the opportunity to respond faster. So multidisciplinary teams that have the authority to make decisions on their own. That is one of the key levers that we're trying to pull to make sure that we're on top of what is changing and can react in a fast mode.
Can you provide a snapshot of any other sort of major innovations that banks are using to differentiate themselves?
A lot is being said about banks not able to innovate or not doing things, etc. I don't think that is right. If you see what banks have done over time by creating networks like SWIFT, by creating internet banking facilities, mobile, etc., banks do a lot. But the fact is that with new technology, more opportunities simply will be there, and we need to learn that we're not the masters of the universe when it comes to dealing with everything at the same time. So in that sense, cooperating with either fintechs or players that have an edge in certain areas, that's going to be the new game that we all have to play. But I can name so many different things that are changing right now: API, blockchain, robotics, artificial intelligence, etc. If you talk to people and explain what you're actually doing and what banks are doing in this respect, people really can't believe it. So a number of things are going on.
Mark, thank you very much for your time.